My name is Alvina, and I'm a 34-year-old stay-at-home mom. My family includes my husband, Morris, our two elementary school-aged daughters, and Morris's parents. We all live on the same property, making us a household of 6. Before we got married, I worked night shifts, but Morris suggested I quit so we could spend more time together. Reluctantly, I agreed and focused on raising our kids, eventually picking up part-time work when things became more manageable. Initially, I wasn't comfortable with the idea of living with Morris's parents. I barely knew them and worried it might be stressful. Morris had assured me before we married that we wouldn't have to live with them, which was a relief. But soon after the wedding, he brought up the subject again. He said he was concerned about their well-being and proposed that they live on the same property but in a separate house. I was shocked and protested, reminding him of his earlier promise. Morris countered by asking, "Do you dislike my parents that much? If it were your parents, wouldn't you want to help them?" His words stung, and I felt cornered. My parents were still healthy and living comfortably with my brother, so I couldn't argue much. To my dismay, Morris revealed that his parents had already started building a house on our property, leaving no room for negotiation. Reluctantly, I agreed, but only on one condition: we would live our lives separately and not interfere in each other's affairs. Morris and his parents assured me this would be the case. At first, the arrangement seemed manageable. We lived separately, and I joined my in-laws for meals once or twice a week. Their new house was nice, and I thought, maybe this isn't so bad. One day, we'll inherit the property anyway. But I underestimated how things would unfold. At first, my mother-in-law would visit occasionally, asking for small favors, like carrying something heavy or preparing a meal when she felt unwell. It seemed harmless enough, so I helped. However, her visits soon became frequent, and her requests more demanding. She began to expect me to take care of household chores beyond my own. "Is breakfast ready?" she'd ask. Or, "Why hasn't our house been cleaned yet?" It was as if the entire workload had shifted to me without any discussion. Before I knew it, I was cooking 3 meals a day and cleaning both houses. Morris stayed silent about it. My father-in-law, on the other hand, occasionally apologized and would offer me a small snack, saying, "I'm sorry for the trouble, Alvina. Please take this." His kindness, though appreciated, wasn't enough to ease the burden. Things worsened when my mother-in-law began meddling in how we raised our daughters. She criticized everything from their extracurricular activities to their lack of participation in chores. "Why aren't your girls helping with the housework? What's the point of having 2 daughters if they don't contribute?" she'd say. Though my father-in-law tried to defend me, reminding her of our original agreement to live separately, her apologies were always short-lived. The complaints and interference inevitably resumed. When I brought up my frustrations to Morris, hoping for support, his response was dismissive. "We're family," he'd say. "You need to be more flexible. If things are hard, maybe you're just not handling them well." Day by day, my frustration grew. I felt trapped, unappreciated, and overwhelmed. Then one day, everything changed. My mother-in-law collapsed unexpectedly at home. We called an ambulance, but she passed away from a seizure before reaching the hospital. Her death left me with mixed emotions: sadness for the loss and relief that the relentless stress of her interference was finally over. Despite her overstepping, my father-in-law had always been kind to me. I tried my best to take care of him after her passing. He often expressed his gratitude, apologizing for the broken agreement and acknowledging that he wasn't able to manage the housework alone. My daughters adored their gentle grandfather, and for a while, life felt calmer. We experienced a few peaceful months as a family. But this peace didn't last. A few months later, my father-in-law collapsed as well. Although he survived, he was left bedridden and required constant care. When the topic of his care came up, He hesitantly mentioned going to a nursing home, not wanting to burden us. Before I could respond, Morris interrupted. Families should take care of each other, he declared. Nursing homes are only for emergencies. Alvina already said she's okay with taking care of you. I was stunned. I hadn't agreed to anything of the sort, but with Morris speaking for me, I felt cornered. I genuinely cared for my father-in-law and wanted to help him, but taking on full-time care was a massive responsibility, especially with 2 young kids and no support from Morris. Feeling pressured, I reluctantly agreed. The reality of caregiving was far more difficult than I had imagined. My father-in-law needed assistance with everything: meals, bathroom visits, bathing, and even changing clothes. He was a strong man despite his age, and as a woman, helping him with such personal tasks was often awkward. On top of caregiving, I still had to manage the rest of the household. Mornings were a whirlwind of preparing breakfast, getting the kids ready for school, and cleaning. Afternoons were spent helping the kids with homework and playing with them while squeezing in chores. Evenings were consumed with making dinner, more caregiving tasks, and tending to everyone's needs. Every night, I collapsed into bed, physically and emotionally drained. Morris, instead of stepping up, withdrew even further. He claimed work was busier than ever, often staying out overnight and coming home only 2 or 3 times a week. His absences made everything harder. I never knew when he'd be home, which made meal planning stressful. On nights when I was too exhausted to cook a proper meal, I'd prepare something simple. But Morris would complain, "Is this all you made? After everything I do, this is what I come home to?" His words stung deeply, especially knowing how much I was already juggling alone. Each complaint felt like a blow, making me feel even more overwhelmed and unsupported. I was working so hard, and this is what I get? Every time I asked for help, whether with housework or caring for his father, Morris would respond, "You're a full-time homemaker. Taking care of my father is your job." This went on for 3 long years, and it left me feeling miserable every single day. As the years passed, my daughters grew older and began helping around the house. Chantel took on cooking and cleaning, while Janie would gently wipe her grandfather's back, always asking if it felt good. I felt so grateful for their kindness and the way they stepped in to help. Then one day, Morris left his phone at home. I knew I shouldn't, but the temptation was too strong. His password was his birthday, so I unlocked it easily. What I found made my stomach drop. Morris had been having an affair ever since I started caring for his father. To my horror, he and his mistress had a child together. The messages on his phone revealed he'd been financially supporting her. All this time, he'd given me money for living expenses and told me he was saving for our children's future. But it turned out he hadn't saved a single penny. The messages became even worse. One of them read, "My kids are old enough now, so they're not cute anymore, and taking care of the old man is a pain, but at least I've got my idle wife to do it. Putting him in a care facility would cost money, but having my wife do it is free. Got to use free labor, right?" I felt a wave of fury flood through me, and I couldn't stay calm any longer. Normally, I'd wait for more evidence before confronting him, but I couldn't hold back. As soon as Morris got out of the bath, I shoved his phone in his face and demanded, "What is this about?" At first, he seemed shocked, but he quickly regained his composure and said something that cut even deeper. "You've lost your femininity since we had the kids. You don't wear makeup anymore. Your clothes are all about comfort, and you fall asleep with your mouth open." I felt like I had been punched in the gut. Morris's cruel words just kept coming. He continued, "Ever since you started caring for my father, you've lost even more of your femininity. You're not even a middle-aged woman anymore. You're like a middle-aged man." His words stung, but he wasn't done. He went on to say, "My girlfriend always wears makeup and takes care of herself, even after having a child. I don't plan on divorcing you, but my love is for her and our child. Once my father is gone and the kids are adults, I plan to kick you out and live with her. I couldn't hold back my tears. His callous words made me feel worthless, and despite his occasional concern for the kids, it was clear that he didn't care about me at all. I tried to pick myself up. I tried dressing up and putting on makeup, but it was hard. I was juggling everything: childcare, housework, and caring for his father, all by myself. And I had to do it quickly, often with messy hair and no time to feel good about myself. I asked him, "If you wanted me to look beautiful, why didn't you help with the housework or caring for the kids and your father?" Morris's reply was cold and unfeeling. "Look at other women. They stay beautiful while raising their kids. You're just not efficient. As a stay-at-home mom, you have no right to argue with me. I'm the one putting food on the table. If you have a complaint, you can divorce me." Then, with a tone that sent a chill down my spine, he added, "For a woman your age, job opportunities are limited. Do you really think you can raise our 2 kids on alimony and compensation from me?" His words crushed me, and I couldn't find the strength to argue. I thought of the children, and the idea of leaving him felt impossible. But Morris pressed on. "You can't, can you? If you care about the kids, you'll take care of my father until the end. After that, you'll work as my housekeeper. Don't worry, when the kids grow up, they'll help you, so you'd better treat them well." With that, he walked off with a satisfied smirk on his face. I was left standing there, paralyzed, not knowing what to do. It took me some time to gather myself, but eventually, I went to care for my father-in-law. I tried to hide my emotions, but it must have been obvious something was wrong. He looked at me with concern and asked, "Is something wrong?" I tried to brush it off, but the tears started flowing, and I ended up telling him everything. After listening quietly, my father-in-law said, "Alvina, I have something for you. Can you come back in a few hours?" I did as he asked, and when I returned, he handed me a piece of paper with someone's contact information. He said, "Contact this person. They know everything. I should be the one to act, but with my condition." He smiled gently, as if trying to reassure me. A few days later, Morris told me, "I'll be on a business trip for a week. I guess it's better for you too if we call it a business trip, right? I'll enjoy the sightseeing." As soon as he left, I knew this was my chance. I decided to take action while he was away. When Morris returned a week later, he was furious. He searched frantically, but everything was gone. I calmly asked him, "How was your week-long affair trip? Did you enjoy it?" Morris immediately shouted, demanding to know what was going on. His anger only confirmed what I already knew. I explained to him that the contact my father-in-law had given me was for a man named Mr. Corey, an old friend who had always wanted to buy the land where my in-laws' house stood. My father-in-law had repeatedly turned down Mr. Corey's offers, insisting he planned to leave the property to his son, Morris. But after seeing Morris's behavior, my father-in-law changed his mind. He decided it was better to sell. Before Morris left, I'd already spoken to Mr. Corey, and we arranged to sell the house and land for a price far above the market value. My father-in-law even asked Mr. Corey to demolish the house during the week Morris was away. When Morris returned, he found nothing but an empty lot. I told him about our plans to use the proceeds from the sale to build a new house. When Morris heard this, he tried to manipulate me, saying, "You're jobless, right? Even if your father builds a house, you can't expect to live comfortably without my income." I smiled and said, "Don't worry about me. I've already got a job offer from a company run by an acquaintance." Then, I turned the tables and asked, "Shouldn't you be worrying about yourself instead?" Morris looked confused, so I explained, Your job was only secure because your father was friends with the company president. But now that he's cut ties with you, the president said you could be fired for poor performance and your affair. Morris quickly tried to defend himself, saying, "I didn't mean it. I was just angry. I wasn't really going to leave you. We're family. Let's work things out." But I stood firm. "My family now is my daughters and my father-in-law. Goodbye," I said, before hanging up on him. Morris called several times after that, but I ignored him. The divorce was finalized soon after. I filed for compensation from both Morris and his mistress, armed with plenty of evidence of his affair from various sources, including the company president. I also uncovered that Morris had been embezzling funds from his company to fund his double life. As a result, Morris lost his job and faced a lawsuit for damages. He tried to move in with his mistress, but she dumped him when she realized he had no money left. Now, Morris is struggling to find a new job, juggling multiple part-time gigs just to pay off his debts and child support. As for me, I plan to live with my daughters and my father-in-law in a rented house until we can move into the new home my father-in-law is building for us. When he offered to build the house, he mentioned wanting to move into a care facility himself, but also said he hoped we could live happily together there. I couldn't accept that. I told him, "What are you talking about, Dad? We're family. It would make the girls sad. Let's live together." My daughters also took his hand and said, "We want to live with Grandpa." With tears in his eyes, my father-in-law thanked us, deeply moved by our support. Though it's challenging to juggle work and care for him, my daughters help out as much as they can. We're now living together as a family of 4, supported by home assistance and day services. And despite everything we've been through, we're all looking forward to moving into our new home and starting a fresh chapter as a